In today's video, we are shooting a bunch of bows, gonna check them out, see which ones are shooters, which ones aren't shooters, what's easy to set up, and what you might want to pick up next. Stay tuned. My name's Clint Campbell. If you're not familiar with me, I run the Truth from the Stand deer hunting podcast, where we talk all about bow hunting tricks, tips, and tactics. And today, we're shooting a bunch of bows. I'm at Bob and AJ's in the suburbs of Philadelphia, out near Bucks County, where my buddy Wilson works, and we're gonna shoot a bunch of bows and talk about the specs and see which ones are shooters and which ones aren't. So let's get to it. All right, so the plan here is we're gonna shoot 5 different bows and just kind of look at them from a normal guy. I'm not a competitive shooter or anything like that. I'm a bow hunter. So I'm gonna evaluate them based on how I would want a bow to feel, draw, and shoot whenever I'm in the deer woods. And then my buddy Wilson will kind of talk about some of the specs and stuff like that. And so what we're gonna shoot is a Solution, which is a Bowtech, and we're going to shoot a Prime Nexus. We're going to shoot an Elite Encore, I think, right? Encore. And then we're going to shoot the new Mathews V3-31. And then just so we have something to compare all these against, I'm going to shoot my VXR-28 that I've been shooting for the past year and see how it stacks up to the bow that I really, really like. At the end of the day, I'll decide whether or not I would take one of these over the current bow that I shoot. Who knows, maybe I'll end up buying a new bow at some point. All right, so the first one we're going to shoot here is the Prime Nexus. All these bows were set up to my draw length, short arms, 26.5-inch draw length, and they're all right around 65-pound draw weight. And I'm going to shoot my arrows that I consistently shoot, which are the Day 6 arrows, and they're all right around 470 grains roughly. So here goes. Take the first rip of this one. Gonna need to hold it a little lower. What I liked about this bow, obviously you can't compare them yet because this is the first one I shot, but for 65 pounds, man, this thing draws really smooth. And the back wall feels good. There's no it doesn't want to take off on you, so the valley feels plenty deep enough to where it doesn't feel like this thing wants to take off on me. I wasn't sure, I'm not usually a big fan of primes typically because I don't like how much let off there is, because when you get it back, it's like there's almost like there's nothing there, and some of the earlier bows that I've shot almost felt like you had to push the string forward to get it to pop off, but this one actually feels really good, probably better than any of the other primes that I shot. So I can see why some of my buddies who have shot Mathews for a while have kind of switched over to primes. A little bit of hand shock. I'm going to take into consideration that this is obviously a completely bare bow, so there's nothing on it to weight it down, nothing to kind of absorb any of that shock. But overall, I thought that one shot really well. All right, this next one is the Bowtech Solution. So to be honest with you, I've never shot a Bowtech, I don't think, in my life. First thing I kind of noticed is the grip is a little different than what I'm used to. The Prime, the grip is a little bit bigger. Mathews, the grip seemed just a little bit bigger. This one there's nothing on it. It's just almost like you're grabbing a hold of the riser, which is kind of cool. A little bit of a smaller grip. So let's go ahead and load this thing up and fling a couple arrows. Should have worn my range jorts. Man, that was I'm not gonna lie, man, that felt pretty good. I actually really liked that little bit of a smaller grip. It was a little weird draw in it, but once I got kind of settled in, the grip felt great. Super balanced, not really any hand shock at all. The draw cycle, not quite as nice as the Prime, but still pretty nice. It just felt a little stiffer. Back wall was solid though. Once you got into that back wall, you were good to go. It didn't feel like it wanted to jump on me or take off on me or anything like that. And actually, just everything felt really good. So pretty impressed, man. This is a good shooting bow. I like it. All right, up next, we've got the Elite Encore. So I've shot some Elites before, actually several years ago when I shot a ton of bows and was trying to pick a new bow. I shot a couple of Elites, and I thought they shot fine. I just was never a big fan of them. They actually felt a lot like the primes to me, to be honest. But I know a ton of cats that are shooters, that shoot competitively, that swear by the Elites. So kind of interested to fling some arrows with this and see how this one feels. So let's send some arrows downrange. That felt pretty good. I mean, again, kind of similar to the prime. I would actually probably say this one felt more like the Bowtech, honestly. Less hand shock than the prime. The grip feels similar to the Bowtech as far as like just kind of feeling like you're just grabbing a hold of the riser. Draw cycle probably just a little smoother than the Bowtech, but stiffer than the prime. I honestly like a little bit more or less let off when I get into the back wall. Not a whole lot of hand shock with this one, so pretty impressed with this one. It's a good shooting bow. It's nice to have an assistant, when you're big time in it like I am. You have people just walking around handing you bows. So this next one we're gonna shoot is the Mathews V3, I think 31. Is this the 31? So just full disclosure, I'm typically a fan of Mathews. I like the way they shoot. But the first thing I noticed when I grabbed this one was that the grip actually is probably more similar to the prime, and fatter and wider than what is on the Bowtech and what is on the Elite that I just shot. I kind of know what to expect from this bow. Is what I kind of understand is it shoots very similar to the VXR28, which is what I've been shooting for the past year. So let's send some arrows downrange and see how this one feels. So, as I kind of expected, Mathews felt great. What I'm kind of similar to. After shooting the other bows before it though, it's like getting it back is smooth. It's just it just feels a little heavier for whatever reason. Not exactly sure why, but it felt like the Elite actually drew smoother. I actually kind of preferred that draw cycle for whatever reason. The grip felt familiar to me because I've been shooting a Mathews, so that wasn't a big deal necessarily. But no hand shock really at all to speak of. The bow itself does feel a little heavier, which would make sense. Not quite having as much hand shock. There's a little bit more material, a little bit more weight to absorb some of that energy. But overall, a really good shooting bow. So now what I have in my hand is my bow. This is a Mathews VXR28. Shot it all last year, loved it. Actually, it was a bit of an emergency because I had a bow that just wasn't tuning well for me, and I got tired of messing with it, so I picked this one up and then shot this the rest of the season. And great shooting bow, and so now I just want to shoot it to compare it as an older model to the brand new model that I just shot today. So we'll fling a couple of these arrows downrange and be good to go. Alright, so Old Faithful felt good. I would say, truthfully, it's like if I had to compare all of them in terms of shooting, like I'm most comfortable with this one, that's pretty obvious. But I would say if I were going to buy a brand new bow right now, just based on what I shot and how they felt, probably either the Elite felt the best to me. Now, they probably didn't feel good enough, or better enough for me to change out what I'm shooting today, the Mathews. I'd say it's pretty comparable, but those two probably felt the best overall. Action. So we got done shooting. Now we're just going to kind of go over each bow, talk a little bit about the specs, and because Wilson works here at Bob and AJ's and sets up the bows. Link in the description to the website. Check Bob and AJ's out. So let's start with the first one. Is the Prime Nexus, right? So let's talk about this one when you set it up a little bit.
Prime. This is the Nexus 4. It's 34 inches axle, hence the 4. We haven't carried Prime in our shop for a while, just because it wasn't something that we were comfortable shooting, and so the rep came in and we shot this bow for hours, and we were super impressed with what the changes that Prime made. Talk about sound, it's just as quiet as the Mathews.
That's the one thing I noticed when I was shooting, because you even mentioned when I was shooting my Mathews, sighting it in today, how quiet it was, and I don't really ever recognize it until I shoot other bows or hear other people shoot how quiet it is. But this thing was super quiet, because that was one of the things. One of our mutual friends shot Prime for a lot of years, and that was one of the things he didn't like about some of the older Primes, was just how loud they were. Yeah, they quieted it way down. I mean, we don't have a decibel meter or anything. Mathews is still just a hair quieter. But they changed, one of the things I love is Prime changed their grip. They teamed up with some astronaut company or something and inserted some foam in there, and that thing stays warm all the time. And just the shape of this grip that they changed to allows your hold to be consistent almost every time. I mean, there's going to be things that are changed. I know a lot of shooters will watch this and say, well, no, that's not true. It almost forces you into a proper grip. There's always room to have improper grip, but this grip holds super tight, and I've loved that a lot. And speed-wise, you're getting very similar speeds to every flagship bow out there as we shot out there. So how about setting this thing up? What are some of the things? There are pros and cons.
Big positive. You used to have to order new cams to change your draw length. And now they've added a swing mod in here, so we can change on the fly as a Bowtech. We love it because I can set this bow up in 5 minutes for anybody that wants to shoot it. Just in the matter of 2 screws and your string stop, your cable stop. So for me to set this up for anyone as a Bowtech is really nice, because I don't have to look around for any extra mods in a box or try to find a different cam. I can just loosen some screws up and tighten them down, and we're good to go. So that is, and if you have an Allen key at your house and you want to mess with your draw length, you don't need to press. It's just all right in between your cams in there. Wow, I don't know if you saw that.
All right, let's check out the next bow. We've got the Bowtech Solution, which I really dug the way this bow shot. So let's talk about setting this thing up. What's different about it? What's unique about it?
Setting this bow up is very similar to setting a Prime up. They have an adjustable mod, and they actually have their draw lengths printed right on the cam. So also for a Bowtech, if I don't have all the numbers memorized, I can look right on the cam to see exactly where that mod needs to be in the matter of a split second. So if someone comes in, I measure them up, and they're at 27, it's going to take me only a couple minutes to change the top and the bottom mods and the limb stop, the cable stop, so that we can have them shooting right away. So from a customer standpoint, it's really cool. You can come in and say, I want to shoot that bow, that bow, and that bow, and within a few minutes, I got them all set up to your draw length and draw weight to shoot. So Bowtech is on the same kind of playing field as that. Bowtech has 2 positions that you can shoot your cams in: performance or comfort. So Clint was shooting on comfort. It is one of the most comfortable draws, which is why they call it comfort.
Right. It's not a clever name.
No, they were like, what should we call this? How about comfort? Because it's comfortable. And that is an easy thing to switch. If you were to switch back to performance, you're going to gain some speed. That draw cycle will change drastically. And depending on what draw weight you are, it will change even more drastically to really, really, really heavy up front, and it'll turn into a very aggressive cam to gain some speed out of your bow. Tunability out of the box, we don't have to mess with Bowtechs a lot. You can tune each cam from their deadlock system, so if you want to move your cam left to right as to where a Mathews or a Prime, you'd have to take the cam out and put different shims in. Bowtech, you're able to tune it right by an Allen key right on the axle of the bow, and then lock it in so it's not going anywhere. A lot of guys were nervous, like, is that just going to move on me? Well, it's deadlock system, so you put it where you need to be, you paper tune it, lock it in, and it's not going anywhere. So
next bow we're going to talk about is the Elite Encore. Was a good shooter. It was probably my second favorite out of the bunch that I shot, Bowtech being probably my favorite just in terms of shootability. But this one was a close second, so let's talk a little bit about what is unique with these guys for this year.
I don't have a ton of experience shooting Elites. Elite is one of the bows that when a customer comes in and they've shot an Elite, it's all they shoot and it's all they'll ever shoot. Because there's a certain feel in the draw cycle and how an Elite shoots that people love. And so speed-wise, you're right in there. What were you shooting, 250?
Right around, like everything was right between 230 and 250. Yeah. And
tunability for the Encore, for all the Elites, you have the ability to, based on your paper tear, tune your limb pocket. If you have a tail right tear or tail left tear, you can adjust with an Allen key that you can get at any store, right here on your riser. You don't have to take anything apart. You don't have to get a press for anything, and you can just start to tinker with your tears to achieve a bullet hole, a perfect bullet hole. So one of the things that as a Bowtech it's just a pet peeve of mine is that, and if someone from Elite is listening, I don't know why your screw heads are different than every other bow on the market. So I can use an Allen key for everything, even for tuning
the limb pocket.
But then on your cam, so I can set this up to any draw length or any draw weight on the cam, you decided to change and use a hex key instead of an Allen key. And there's two different sizes. So you're like doing one thing and then you have to change. So
right, I thought that was interesting. That was weird whenever you were setting this up, because it wasn't only that you had to change the tool, it was that the screws on the cam itself were two different sizes.
Yep, where every other bow, they're the same tool to use and the same size. And so ease of getting things set up, it's a little bit, I'm not complaining about having to pick up the blue tool instead of the yellow tool.
But in terms of like workflow,
yeah,
right? It's just one of those things where it's like, man, I gotta go over here, and especially if you set it on the other side of the shop or whatever, So
yeah, you have this LTR roll cable containment system, so I can tune that as well. So if you want to pull your cables in or pull them in or push them out, that's all with an Allen key right here, which would mess with your timing and your tune. So a lot of cool stuff. It's a very adjustable bow, which can be intimidating to some people, where, I can do this, and I can do this, and I can do this. But we love getting bows set up, and if you are a tinkerer and like to mess with stuff all the time, this is a great bow because you're going to be able to get it just exactly where you want it.
Right, can dial it in, with a lot of different options. So
yeah.
Cool bow, good shooter. Let's take a look at the next. All right, the last bow we're going to look at here is the Mathews V331. So felt good, felt very similar to my VXR28 that I personally own and shoot. Just a good shooting bow. It's what you come to expect from Mathews. But what are some of the things that are different with this one for this year?
They have the center guard cable containment. So where this cable guard is coming down at an angle on the VXR and the other models, it just came straight out at a 90 degree from your riser. This puts your containment at the center of your cables, giving it the ultimate timing. It's the optimal position for your cable guard to have the correct timing on a bow. When we first got into the shop and we first got our hands on it, it doesn't leave a lot of room for a rest in there. And so we put basically every rest known to mankind. from Hamskis, Schaefer, the QAD, and they all fit. And every time we're amazed that they fit. It's a tight fit. We have run into some clearance issues, so Clint's shooting a little bit of a larger vein. You have to make sure that you have clearance so your arrow's not hitting here.
Yeah.
But they went to a sub-parallel limb, so your limb is actually past parallel before you draw, and they stuck with large limb pockets. They have the same cams.
Classic big Mathews cams.
Yep, and it gives you that Mathews feel, that weight up front and a smooth draw in your back wall. The speeds out of this bow, out of everything we've shot, have been always a foot or two per second faster on everything that we've done. Mm-hmm. Like the Elite has and the Bowtech has, where you can do some different adjustments to your cam and your limbs. Mathews has what's called a top hat system, where I would have to take this cam out and change the top hats out, or a shim, to move this cam left or right based on where it's tuning at. And out of all the time I've set up lots of Mathews bows, I've only had to do it a couple times, because out of the box they're the most tunable and consistent bow that I've dealt with setting up.
Right.
And I don't get paid by Mathews. I'm not sponsored in any way. I shot a prime. I'm still thinking about setting up a prime, and so I shoot a Mathews right now. I love it. It's just, it always comes down to what is the best fit for you, and what feels the best.
Yeah,
so.
I mean, for me, just going back to the tunability of it, I shot a different brand for a couple years, and I ended up going back to Mathews because I was having a hard time tuning it, and the more I kind of shoot and stuff like that, like I want to spend less time fiddling and more time shooting, scouting, hunting, and stuff like that. And so for me, it's like Mathews is one of those bows that I can drag through the dirt, mud, swamps, and it'll be a shooter the whole season.
Yeah.
And that really for me was why I went back to him, because I don't have to. I go to tune it. It's a small tweak. It's maybe adjusting my timing, and then it's good to go.
Yeah.
So I think the final kind of question here is, for me, from a shooting perspective, you heard Wilson kind of break down the bows and how they tune and stuff like that. I shot them. We looked at them through a chrono. I kind of gave you my perspective on the feel. Again, I'm not sponsored by any of these brands. I don't work with any of them. So for me, if I were going to start brand new and I didn't have a bow today, I would buy the Bowtech. And I would pay the little bit extra because that thing was just a straight shooter. And it was comfortable. The draw cycle was killer. It felt great. If I had a bow that was still a really good functioning bow, like I do, like I shoot the Mathews VXR 28, it didn't outperform my current bow enough for me to get rid of that bow and buy a new bow.
Yeah.
So for me, it's like I'm probably not going to change. I'm going to stick with what I have.
Yeah.
But if I were going to buy a new bow, if I were in the market for a new bow, I would look real hard at the Bowtech versus all the other ones that we shot today.
Yeah. Yeah. So I would suggest, if you're looking for a new bow, go to your bow shop and have them do what we did with Clint today. Set up all the bows at the same poundage, same draw length, and just shoot them.
Yeah. Thanks for watching this video. I hope you dug it. Hopefully it helps you make some decisions about your future bow purposes. If you haven't yet, be sure to hit the subscribe button to make sure you get all the upcoming videos and podcasts.